Kelloggs या Kellonova जो भी आप कहते हो उसको आजकल अच्छा पहले ये नेम का क्या चेंज क्यों हुआ है नेम
It had got a varied set of products across varied markets.
Like?
Right? Kellogg's, muesli,
Pringles?
So there was a conscious decision made. North America cereals business, it became a different company,
yeah.
and it's called WK Kellogg Company, and the rest of the Kellogg company became Kellanova.
Wow. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our podcast Talent First. Today we have with us someone who's the head of analytics in the Southeast Asia region of a very interesting company that we all would be customers of. I'm sure we have had some of their products, probably their cereals, their cornflakes. I'm talking about Kellogg's, which is now known as Kellanova. So hi Nithya, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good.
How's it going?
Thank you so much. It's going great.
What is your New Year resolution this time?
My New Year resolution is, of course, I have got new milestones for learning, for my own learning. I want to read as many books as I can.
आपका last year का resolution क्या था?
Pretty much the same. It doesn't change, right? It doesn't change.
I think resolutions are overrated.
Yeah. True that. Yeah.
It's probably the mindset of that month.
Yeah.
What I've realized कि December में मैंने क्या सोचा उस हिसाब से resolution it's not like a long term thought.
Absolutely true. And therefore, I don't want to call them as resolutions. These are my incremental milestones that I give to myself, and more often than never, these are around a learning objective.
Right. So Nithya, let's try to understand your journey. एक बार पहले जाते हैं. Let's go to like 1996. I'm sure you are in your later stage of your schooling.
Yeah.
How's India at that time? What have you been doing at that time? Let's just go back in that time.
Yeah. So in 1996, you're right. Around that time, I was in what I was doing. I was in my 10th-ish.
9th or 10th.
10th-ish, right? And my world was my school and my home, right?
Yeah.
And that time, computers were so new. I was so excited when my dad bought a desktop computer for me, right? And then...
But उस time पे काफी अमीर लोगों के पास computers होते थे. Were you from an affluent family?
No. My dad always ensured that, me and my sister were well provided in terms of access to these opportunities, right? And of course, I'm very sure he would have found it pretty difficult back then. But yeah, and then I found it really interesting, and you remember, right? The sound the modem used to make.
You
have to keep waiting until it connects you to the world.
Not that I know, but
World of possibilities, right? Internet. And internet, that time was so limited in its capabilities and slow. कुछ नहीं था, बहुत simple था, right? So that itself was such exciting, and
this computer was bought for what reason in the house?
Me and my sister, we needed to kind of do.
And you have an elder sister or younger sister?
Elder sister, and my elder sister is quite.
What is she doing now?
She's in US. And,
oh wow.
She's working there, and she's got a family there in US, right? And she's been there for about, I would rather say, as much as I can remember, 22 years.
Wow.
Right.
So going back to 96, you got a computer, your life sort of changes, or you sort of see the possibilities.
Right. That's my first interaction with the outer world, right? Beyond my home and school, right? And then after that, passing out from schools and then going to college, and then I realized much more. There's much more beyond those two boxes, right? That were lying on my table. I did my engineering in College of Engineering, Pune, in electronics and telecommunications.
And Pune is a proper belt of engineering, right?
Oh yeah, you talk about it. And I was in COEP, which was supposed to be, the best college.
So आपने कॉलेज में मजे किए कुछ पढ़ाई के अलावा कुछ किया आपने?
मज़े बहुत कम किए. मैं बहुत सीधी सादी लड़की थी यार, honestly. But काफ़ी पढ़ाई तो किया, और मस्ती was only about like going to the boat club and having a cup of tea and samosa and chatting with friends. बस उतना ही था. I mean, it was a honor and prestige to be in that university, a part of.
And you graduated at the time of the Y2Ks and all. उसके एक दो साल बाद graduate किया आपने?
हाँ. I 2003 I graduated out of it.
तो now आपकी class में कितने लोग थे total? 200 लोग? Yeah,
which is
batchman.
around 30
In the batch.
in
college,
college.
yeah.
So मेरे department में मेरे class में around 30-35 थे.
And उसमें how many were girls? Very few, right?
Tough question. Maybe, 50-50 डाल देते.
It was 50-50.
Yeah, it was
But that was the diversity at that time also.
awesome diversity.
Wow.
Because this is one college which everyone aspires to get into. So you've got amazing diversity, even for that matter in mechanical department.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there was an amazing diversity
Wow.
of girls.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Because now when I talk to most of the leaders who have had a very similar journey, what I understand is that obviously the diversity still now is not that great. It's still about 33-34% females as opposed to men. But back 15-20 years ago, though, it was much worse. So if you are telling me 50-50, it is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And as I said, in civil and in mechanical department, you hardly expect back then. Now it's
Yeah.
different, but back
Yeah.
then you hardly expect girls. But
Yeah, yeah.
we had got good diversity. there also.
So now you get into Satyam.
Yes.
Satyam कैसे होता है? Like campus placement थी.
Yeah, it was campus placement.
And I'm assuming आप TCS वगैरह से भी विप्रो TCS भी देखा होगा आपने या नहीं देखा?
उस टाइम पे I think I got a job in 2 companies. एक तो through campus I got into Satyam, and then off campus मुझे Infosys भी मिला था.
Oh, okay.
तो I made a conscious choice. For some reason, I don't remember, maybe it was just an impulsive thing कि मतलब Satyam was the first offer I got in my life, so more emotionally attached to it, so I joined Satyam.
And Satyam at that time, from a media viewpoint, was the media darling, right? Like everyone used to like really aspire to, and it had a really big cult kind of thing, right?
Yeah, true.
And if I may ask, how much was your starting salary? 18,000 rupees? 18?
नहीं यार 10,000 भी नहीं.
Oh wow.
I think सब कांट छांट के बाद हाथ में 6,000 कुछ आता था. Right.
Wow. And क्या आपके लिए वो पैसे तब बहुत थे या फिर मतलब?
अरे बहुत था, seriously. I've always been a person of very limited needs, right? तो and then I used to stay in shared accommodation, and also 6,000 was kind of, I felt empowered, rich.
So what was your first big purchase that you did with your own money?
First big तो घर के लिए सामान लिए था मैंने, like TV. I got that what is that Onida thing which has got that big Zuka.
Onida had a very famous ad series with like horns and all.
Bazooka thing, I got that first TV out of my salary for my home, and बाकी छोटे मोटे चीजें.
तो अब आप सत्यम में 3-4 साल रहते हो? 4 साल?
4 साल.
तो 4 साल की आप जर्नी बताओ. How did you mature as a person in those 4 years? When you started versus when you left, आप में फर्क क्या था as an individual? क्या differences थे? For good, for bad, both.
I can only talk about good because
Wow, ये तो बड़ा अच्छी है.
the flip sides.
That's so convenient.
The flip sides were very. And not about convenience, because that's what I very distinctly remember. Maybe I as I keep talking, I might remember a few things that I could have avoided. So good thing was कि मतलब when I started, as a typical college graduate, right? Hardly aware of what this whole industry was about. In fact, I didn't even know back then कि मतलब ERP was such a big thing, right? The moment I got into an SAP project, that's when I realized I was so lucky.
For the people who would not know what a ERP is, can you explain in layman terms what a ERP is?
Okay, so ERP is enterprise resource planning tool. If you typically see any organization, it could be a manufacturing organization, or it could be, and again in manufacturing, it could be manufacturing devices, it could be manufacturing food products, etc. So there are some underlying operational processes, right? Starting from their sales and marketing to their materials management, inventory management, the way they manage customer relationship, the way they manage supply relationship, services, etc. So there are fundamental operational processes. Now ERP as a tool, it brings together all of these processes in a well integrated way. This is probably the first step towards more digitally organized operations, or digital transformation.
So basically, in a more simpler manner for the people, मैं हिंदी में अगर explain करूँ इसको, अगर मान लो एक कंपनी है जिसके अंदर बहुत सारी चीजें चल रही हैं, बहुत सारे डिपार्टमेंट्स वर्क कर रहे हैं, उन सब के जो एक्शंस है, how are they connecting back to something common? That common L0 or whatever you call it. It's like a एक मल्टीपल एक्सेल की स्प्रेडशीट्स को तरीके से समझ सकते हैं.
तो एक चीज है कि मतलब even those multiple departments need to operate more optimally in terms of their processes, process excellence, and at the same time all these processes should talk to each other. Right? They can't, for example, a customer relationship has to talk to supplier relationship and other things, right? Material management has to talk to.
So ERP कुछ बड़ी कंपनीज बताइए जो वर्ल्ड में है.
SAP है.
SAP is probably the biggest, right?
Yeah, I mean that's because
they've made
that's what I've got an experience into. But the Oracle है, Salesforce है, काफी है, and then ERP and there are
So ERP और CRM में फर्क क्या होता है for the audience?
CRM could be a subset of ERP, whereas CRM in itself is a major discipline. CRM is about customer relationship management, right? How you not just acquire your customer, but how you retain them, how you service them, and how you ensure that the customer lifetime value is maximized, right? So that's a very big discipline in itself. If you pick SAP as an ERP provider, they have their own CRM module, right? The way they have got SRM and other modules, right? Whereas there are some companies like Salesforce and all who do CRM.
They started with CRM, now they've made their own ERPs around it by acquiring companies back and forth.
Absolutely. So those are like the major players, if I may say, in the CRM space. Yeah.
So yes. So आप सत्यम में गए, आपको पता लगा कि how do organizations work? Processes कैसे work करते हैं?
Processes कैसे work करते हैं कि and how through ERP and through digital transformation we can simplify those processes, as I mentioned, integrate those processes and drive business value. That was the outcome, right? So these were like new concepts and things for me to learn right after fresh out of college. जहाँ पे I studied computer science, digital signal processing, and VLSI and all of a sudden here, it was a kind of a paradigm shift.
Right.
Yeah, embedded systems and all, right? And then all of a sudden this. But this was very, I would say, exciting, and I really loved all of this. And I somehow feel that those were the initial formative years जब मेरा जो foundation काफी strong हुआ. एक तो I had an exposure to corporate, तो ये corporate कैसे काम करता है, right? And how do we collaborate across departments, right? And how we chase a common dream, whereas we kind of do our own part towards that. All of that I figured out. Processes समझ में आए, domain समझ में आया कि मतलब ये what is
आपकी उस टाइम पे अगर मैं आपकी अगर साइकोलॉजी समझूं तो आपकी एस्पिरेशन क्या थी कि मुझे और पैसे कमाने हैं, क्या एस्पिरेशन क्या थी तब?
पैसे थे मेरा एस्पिरेशन और
naturally
for anyone ड्राइविंग फैक्टर क्योंकि तो 6,000 में मेरा गुजारा चल जाता था.
बट फिर भूख बढ़ जाती है, you get hungrier.
I remember at some point in time I didn't feel that was enough. So paisa was of course one driving factor, but I think there was another thing which was also about the learning. And as you probably see my career journey, it's been a constant cycle of learning, right? Because I didn't stop at SAP, right? And I moved on to more business.
सत्यम के बाद आप कहाँ गए थे?
So my SAP consulting journey happened across Satyam, Capgemini, and IBM. So throughout these companies, I was a part of SAP consulting, but at that point, at the point of time when I was in IBM, I realized कि मतलब there is so much that we can do out of data, right? Which a typical ERP tool you will not be able to do. How much ever there is.
2012 की बात, 11 बार.
हाँ, उस time के बाद. And at that time, the science, the data science and analytics was kind of a buzz, and it was picking up, right? Big data and all of that. तो मैंने सोचा कि चलो try करते हैं, because I've got all of this foundational knowledge around domain and processes and all, and probably this is the right juncture where I kind of extrapolate that, right? And then I tried a lot of things, right? I started with business insights and analytics and all, and then I realized कि मतलब ये काफी नहीं है. Then we were talking about all the regression, classification, all the machine learning concepts and statistics, merging along with business data to kind of generate all of this analytics. So then I got upskilled, trainings लिए मैंने और certifications वगैरह लिए, and then on the job I worked on a couple of POCs and use cases, and that's how I started my transition into data and analytics, right? So this was a kind of a very I would say more than a chance transition. It was more of a deliberate transition. And then after that, as you see, deep learning came in, and then again that opened up a whole lot of possibilities that you can do, right, in terms of predictive analytics, right? And then now Gen AI. So, I can keep going on and on about this entire journey because it's been such a phenomenal journey of an organic growth and an organic transition from one domain and one technology to another domain.
But अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, right, like before we get into Microsoft, uh, I think Microsoft is one obviously a very important part of our journey. But before we go there, आपकी हर इंडिविजुअल की करियर में ऐसा कोई टर्निंग पॉइंट आता है या कोई एक पॉइंट आता है वेयर फॉर गुड और फॉर वर्स दे टेक सर्टेन डिसीजंस व्हिच कुड हैव गॉन बोथ वेज. आपने ऐसा कभी कोई डिसीजन लिया इन लाइक फर्स्ट 10-15 years ऑफ योर करियर दैट वाज अ रिस्क दैट यू टुक and it paid off probably?
Yeah, true. I can talk about
Probably switching a job.
Switching my job from IBM to Cisco. I'll tell you the reason because if you see, until IBM, I was a completely SAP person.
Yeah.
I thought I could continue my SAP as well as I can do something in analytics through S4 HANA and things like that, right? But then at the time, I was having this kind of a boxed up feeling ki matlab I was not getting enough opportunities where I could kind of play this out and also do justice to my long-term aspirations. So then Cisco came in, and for those who don't know, Cisco is not an SAP company, right? Cisco has got Oracle, and they have little bit of at that time they had little bit of S4 HANA.
Cisco करती क्या अगर आप थोड़ा for the people who would not know?
Cisco is basically a networking company that manufactures networking devices and switches and all, and it's a world leader in there, and so they are enablers behind the internet, right? And that we are all talking about. So when I got this opportunity with Cisco, I was very clear that it will not have my SAP career is going to end. Right? क्योंकि Cisco में SAP नहीं था, and the role that I was taken into, it was more of analytics, right, and program managing insights and analytics, around that time. So I had this thing, dilemma in my mind ki yaar, should I let go of my SAP because I want to do something very different. But then I made a very impulsive decision. I didn't, because the more I thought about it, the more I got confused, and the dilemma increased. So I said, okay, chalo, let's take a decision. And then I somehow felt that decision, thinking, retrospecting, standing today, that decision was a well-made decision. Obviously. Right? So I'm very happy because at that particular point in time, I was a bit confused ki matlab did I take the right.
A lot of people, a lot of techies get a bit possessive about the tools or technologies that they are involved in. And this especially happens with people who are involved in certain things like Salesforce and all of the world, where they think ki because I was specializing in it, I'm getting more money today and I am much ahead of the crowd. But they keep forgetting that the technology world is evolving parallelly. If you are not evolving parallelly with that and you're just looking in your own silo, you will probably be left behind. That's what it is, right?
Absolutely, spot on. Because if you talk about the deep tech options that we are talking about today, not just Gen AI, but we are talking about genomics, we are talking about DNA synthesis, we are talking about molecular physics, right? Very new complexities, quantum computing, right? Blockchain is still, I would say, something which is of the past, right? So the technology space is evolving at a much rapid pace. If you see the previous technological centuries and kind of turnaround, but now every day or every month, I would say things are changing at a very rapid pace. So, matlab, if you are stuck with one technology or one domain and you're not open to learning, right, then you can very soon become outdated.
Probably, I 100% agree. But आप अब ये बताइए कि Microsoft के अंदर आप जब जा रहे थे, right? It's not easy to crack those Microsoft interviews, and a lot of our listeners here or viewers here have this obsession to work in Microsoft. So can you just tell us, like at a very broad level, कि how does the interviewing in Microsoft work? क्या multiple layers होती है ना?
हाँ, there are minimum 5 to 6, right? See, at every point in time, they, this is my assessment of the process. At every point in time, they try to judge not just your technical fitment, but your cultural fitment,
Culture पे बहुत
right?
focus करते हैं लोग.
हाँ, cultural fitment is very important because my role model is the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, and I see the way he has set up the importance around culture, the culture of learning, culture of innovation, right? Culture of collaboration, right? So the culture part is very, very important in Microsoft. Apart from that, of course, you need to be technically competent, right? They tend to take the cream of the industry, right? So you need to be technically very competent, and of course, you need to display the very typical skills that are required for the role, right? If you're taken in for a people management role, you need to be very good in leading people and engaging with
पर
people.
आपको भी डर नहीं लगा because Microsoft as an organization, as you said, has the most capable brains on this planet. And I'm not trying to say the other organizations you work did not, but Microsoft is on a different league. It's probably the one or two organizations in the whole world that are at that level for the last 30 years or 40 years. So when you were getting into Microsoft, let's say you got in Microsoft, तो your first few days या जानने से पहले लगा नहीं कि यार बहुत स्मार्ट लोग होंगे, कैसा होगा, ऐसा डर लगा कभी आपको?
डर तो मतलब देखो मन में था कि मतलब this is going to be a difficult interviews to crack, but I just was very natural in myself क्योंकि मतलब see they do a very good job at the pre-screening itself, right? They ensure that they take people who are like best fit, and then they kind of explore. It's more of a mutual exploration, right? The candidate also should like the job and should be able to kind of excel and deliver in that job, and vice versa, right? So I think I found the interview process to be more exploratory than probing, right? So therefore they made me feel very comfortable.
थोड़ा explain करिए कि exploratory more than probing. That's a very interesting thing that you just said. तो मतलब was it more about कि they were like brainstorming थी, ideation में बात हो रही थी, they were thinking a thought process, how are you, what are your logical abilities? Was that what they were trying to understand?
So, see, probing mode is more kind of a transactional, right? And you do such kind of interviews probably at an early career stage कि मतलब you ask a question, right? हाँ ये कैसे करते हैं, ये ऐसा code कैसे लिखते हैं, right? ठीक है? And then it's more of a transactional conversation. But in the phase of career that I'm in right now, and in mid career or late or senior leadership, it's more of an exploration to understand ki matlab what you have done in your career, what values you bring, what qualities you bring, right? What skills and capabilities you bring, and that can come only through a more of a dialogue, right? Not just transactional conversations, just exploring what you have done, and also kind of sharing what the role and the organization has to offer, so that you can also kind of be comfortable that you have made the right choice, or you're making the right progress in the right direction. True. Right? So I somehow feel that transactional conversations or that form of interviewing is good, definitely at an early stage where you're selecting people to do a very specific job. But at some point in time, when you want to have more diverse skill in a person on a particular role, I think this kind of a conversational or exploratory way of interviewing, I think, really works better. And that's how happened in my interviews with Microsoft, and they made me feel very comfortable. But you're right, मन में था कि I'm getting into one of the topmost organizations की, and then
नहीं पर जो आपने बात बताई इंटरव्यू की, ये बड़ी सीखने की बात है कि इतनी बड़े लेवल की कंपनीज कैसे एवेलुएट करती हैं लोगों को. बिकॉज एज एन एंटरप्रेन्योर फॉर मी और एज ए सीईओ, दिस थॉट इज ऑलवेज देयर कि एट द टाइम ऑफ इंटरव्यूइंग समवन, हाउ डू आई नो इफ दे आर द राइट पर्सन और नॉट. बिकॉज इंटरव्यू में सब लोग बहुत बड़ी बड़ी बातें करते हैं, एंड काफ़ी बार टेक्निकलिटीज ऐसी होती है कि आई एम नॉट अ पर्सन टू जज कि इफ आई एम राइट और रॉन्ग. बट कुछ हद तक अगर उनकी डिसीजन मेकिंग, कैसे उन्होंने जिंदगी में डिसीजंस लिए हैं, अगर ये समझ आने लग जाए, then you sort of start understanding how they are.
Absolutely. And I think it's more about probing their thought process, as you rightly said, and their decision making process, right? How they think, right? And there's no right or wrong to any of these questions, right? There can be a whole spectrum of answers to these questions.
It's about authenticity. पकड़ आप कोई someone is trying to fake it up, right? Yeah. It's very easy. Absolutely. Like especially if you've done hundreds of interviews, or if you've had hundreds of conversations, it's very easy to understand authenticity, even if it is not that great, is better. I don't know. That's what I think.
No, true. क्योंकि मतलब, you know, the thing is, as I mentioned, there's no one right answer to it, right? And therefore, you speak through your experience. What you feel is the right way to react in a particular situation, right? And therefore, you are very genuine, and you're actually putting your thought process on the table, and it's for the other person to see whether it is a good cultural fit, whether it's a good skill fit, right? In terms of you know, what the role requires, right?
Very true, very true. Now, Microsoft में आप थे 2016 से 18?
Yeah, I was there for 2.5, 3 years.
16 to 18, 19. I think तब तक तो ये GenAI की बात वहाँ पे स्टार्ट ही नहीं हुई थी. मतलब I'm assuming तब
स्टार्ट तो हो चुकी थी कि मतलब वी वर इन फैक्ट व्हेन आई वाज इन माइक्रोसॉफ्ट वी वर वर्किंग ऑन अ फ्यू यू नो इंटरनल फील्ड फेसिंग चैट बॉट्स राइट चैट एप्लीकेशंस तो उस टाइम पे you know we were thinking we were having a very rudimentary chat application so we were thinking how do we have more of a Gen AI embedded in that तो मतलब वो conversation से start हो चुकी थी but it was not at such a
इतनी फास्ट हो जाएगा.
It was not such a big scale. Now, when in my current organization, when I talk about it, we talk Gen AI pretty much every day, every hour. कि मतलब कि how do we kind of infuse Gen AI in our roadmap, right? How do we ensure that we deploy such technologies like Gen AI in order to kind of you know get business benefits for our say commercial applications, for our supply chain applications, right? So these are like the talk of the day on you know almost. Every day.
तो जब आप माइक्रोसॉफ्ट में थे राइट एंड आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड माइक्रोसॉफ्ट जैसा मैंने बताया कि वर्ल्ड की टॉप 1, 2, 3 ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में है केलॉग्स या केलोनोवा जो भी आप कहते हो उसको आजकल अच्छा पहले ये नेम का क्या चेंज क्यों हुआ है
ये नेम ना देखो जितना मुझे पता है क्योंकि जब when I joined the process of the name change had already started क्योंकि देखो there are Kellogg company which was it was called back then it had got a varied set of products across varied markets
like
right?
4-5 main products कौन कौन
Kellogg's muesli Pringles and then more in America you will eat Cheez-Its and Pop-Tarts and then there are noodles business in Africa तो मतलब काफ़ी सारा उनका products portfolio and across multiple markets and then each product is different from the other and the dynamics in each market is different from the other so there was a conscious decision made to kind of segregate the North America cereals business from the rest of the Kellogg company business for some fundamental reasons which I am not aware of and these are boardroom conversations honestly so and therefore the North America cereals business it became a different company and it's called WK Kellogg company and the rest of the Kellogg company became Kellanova right and honestly I'm having to every time I speak to people and I say I'm from Kellanova you know they take a pause and then I understand कि मतलब उनको समझाना पड़ेगा कि क्या है Kellanova then I say it was the erstwhile Kellogg company it's the conflicts that you eat every day probably if I'm not mistaken
आप जैसे बता रहे थे कि for all of these companies analytics is a very big play right now guide us a bit कि Gen AI के आने से जो एक बेसिक एनालिटिक्स है बहुत सिंपल तरीके से आप बताना कैसे वो इवॉल्व होगी एनालिटिक्स इंडस्ट्री
Gen AI के आने से अभी analytics industry is kind of on steroids if I may say like you know superpower speed बढ़ गई है और possibilities बढ़ गए कि what kind of problems you can solve and typically if I don't want to be restricting to CPG industry if you see the whole world of problems that you can solve through Gen AI there are a lot of things that you can do that and there is and because of that there is a lot of new skills that you know that are popping up for people to learn and you know kind of deliver back and there are new applications not only in CPG industry but in say pharma in agri-tech in education etc that that have opened up. So as I said, analytics in general has kind of hit multiple times, a multifold acceleration given Gen AI, and of course CPG industry is kind of also benefiting because if I talk typically about their commercial applications in the commercial area, there are lots of new applications you can do in marketing, in sales, by enabling your teams with the right kind of promos to invest in, the right creatives, right? And also in kind of doing your product strategy, and in if you are also kind of taking some of these companies are also taking care of their logistics part, right? The supplier side, inbound as well as outbound, right? No, even the decongestion of the route and finding the best optimal route solutions, right, has become pretty easy, right? So there is lots which you can do through Gen AI across the industry and very specifically for CPG.
I think that this was a fantastic conversation about your overall journey. Now, I would just like to end it with like two questions that I ask all of the leaders. First, if you could like look at your entire journey, if you had to do one thing differently, what would you do? It's a tough question.
No, this is a good question. If I were to do one thing differently.
And why?
And why? Okay. Maybe I would have fast-tracked my learning a little more.
Really?
Right.
आप Berkeley भी गए थे अभी, I didn't talk about that.
Right.
Which is very interesting.
And I wanted to touch upon that also, Berkeley, because I've been contemplating about Berkeley from the 12th year of my career, and I did it only when I completed.
Why in particular Berkeley?
Not Berkeley, I mean as an executive education, but when I started analyzing the options, I found Berkeley to be more close to my individual requirements for that, right? Yeah. But yeah, I could have done that much faster, maybe I thought, because the perspectives that I gained through this course are phenomenal, right? It helps you think like an executive, right? It helps you kind of bring all the building blocks of a strategy.
You become very macro.
Together, right? You're not an operational guy. You're thinking like somebody who can, even anticipate what lies ahead 10 years, 20 years.
But आप एक चीज बताओ कि I'm just going deeper into this. Executive education में लोगों को लगता है कि यार इतने पैसे इन्वेस्ट कर देंगे उसका रिटर्न क्या आएगा? तो आपको मतलब क्या लगा कि रिटर्न आता है एज अ इंडिविजुअल या इसको रिटर्न की तरफ देखना नहीं चाहिए?
इसको रिटर्न के साथ देखना नहीं चाहिए ऑनेस्टली, क्योंकि it's not like you're investing in a real estate or stocks or
लोग ऐसे ही करते हैं
हाँ कि मतलब
50 लाख रुपए यहाँ डाल देता है,
तो
people think like that.
क्योंकि देखो the way
it's expensive, right? Very expensive.
It's very expensive, but the way it makes you think, right? आपका जो thought process को वो revolutionize कर देता है ना, you feel very happy about it.
Empowered also.
हाँ, empowered क्योंकि before and after I can feel a lot of difference in my thought process.
Yeah, you cannot put a price tag to it.
You definitely cannot put a price tag. Then it becomes your own individual judgment कि मतलब लेना है नहीं लेना है, right?
Right. I think ये clip काट के executive education वाले चलाएंगे हर But yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. And my final question for you, one piece of advice you would want to give to someone who's 25, 23, 24, 22, who's starting their career, what is that one piece of advice you want to give to them?
So, maybe I'll there are a couple of things, but I'll
Sure, you can give us a couple.
कि मतलब first is you should not stop learning, right? I've been a huge proponent of a growth mindset and lifelong learning and student always, and that's the philosophy of Berkeley also, one of the philosophies, right? You need to be a student always, challenge the status quo, right? Beyond yourself, go beyond yourself, right? So these are very, very important traits because, again, also these are not just good to have, they're must have in the current changing scenario, right? Technology evolving, the dynamics of the business and the problem landscape and all evolving. So you need to keep yourself on the toes, continuously learn and continuously share and collaborate and build that relationship so that all of this sharing, collaboration, building relationship can also fuel more of a open innovation, right? And that'll do a much larger good, right? So these are the few things that you need to take care of, and be nimble, right? Be agile, learn from your failures, right? Now earlier the failure points were very limited because the world was very linear and it was not at such a pace that it is right now. Now there are too many failure points, but consider them as opportunities to learn, experiment, and then move forward.
Perfect. I think this was a fantastic end to the conversation. Thank you so much, Nithya. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Perfect.